Hi, I'm Danny and these are my Diecast Disasters. And here I have a Hot Wheels rig dog. It's from the Super Rigs 2021. I've been watching a few of the Pikes Peak runs from the recent 21 event a couple of weeks ago. So I thought I'd customize this truck today in the style of a hill climb truck. So of course it came with the trailer and the extra car there, but I'm not going to be using either of those today. So we'll crack straight into it and take it apart. So I'll drill out the first post there, that's part of the metal casting, and then the rear two, and these are just plastic, so I'm being careful with them, doing them slowly. Right, with those drilled out, I can now pull it all apart. So there's the cab there, that's the cast metal part, and the interior and the engine. There's the windscreen. And then the base consists of this middle section here, and the chassis, and then there's the wheels and axles. So the next step is to remove the paint off of the casting. I'm just using some paint stripper. So there it is, bubbling all of the paint off. Then I can wash it off with some water and finish off the job with a wire brush on my rotary tool. Get rid of the oxidation as well. Make it all clean and shiny, ready for a new paint. Next I'll do that gold middle section, so to remove that gold chromey stuff, I've got some hot water and some caustic soda. I'll mix them up, remember not to touch it or it'll burn you, and I'll pop that in there. And I had to leave it for about 10 minutes or so, and then it didn't actually get rid of all of it. I had to repeat the whole process about 3 times to get rid of all of the gold. And so here it is after 3 different dips and rinses in the caustic soda solution. Here I have another cheap little toy car. It's the D-Irection, and you can see it has the speed of fast. We're not going to be needing that today. What we're going to do is take these wheels. So as you see, they're just the right size to replace the transparent Hot Wheels wheels originally on the truck. So to pull this apart, I just have to bend out these tabs. It's just pressed steel. And then I can pop base off. Alright, so there's the base off. You can see those are quite thick axles. I'm just going to cut the wheels out. Right, there's our new wheels. As you can see, there's only 4 of them. So I'm going to be removing the rear off of the truck because it's a bit long, and I don't think a hill climb truck would have 6 wheels. So there, I've chopped off the rear. Now I'm filing the underneath flat. You can see I've drilled a new hole through there. I want the rear axle to be, and I've drilled it just big enough to put in this new axle casing made out of a piece of aluminium tube. So there, I'll cut that off to the right length, and I've glued it in. And to fill up the gaps there, I'm going to be using some thick Starbond super glue. I'll just build up around where the axles stick out the side, and there's all those gaps there. And then once that's set hard, I'll be able to file and sand it back smooth. I'm just going to use the accelerator as well to help set it. I'll set solid in about 15 seconds or so. I should be able to work it. So just filing it down smooth again. And so there's the 2 parts fitting back together again, and I'll use the same method to do the front axle casing as well. There's the new wheel with the big fat axle fitting in there. So next I'll file down the bit where the trailer connects on. Not going to be needing that. I'm just going to cover up the hole there with a piece of styrene. Just gluing it on with some more super glue. I use a bit more of the thick super glue to fill up the sides, and then I can sand it all down smooth. Now I'm going to put another piece of styrene to cover up the rear there, and the same deal, I'll filler it and sand it smooth. And you can see I've done the same thing with the front axles as well. So next I've used one of my new 3D printers. It's a filament printer to print out some struts to hold up a big spoiler for the rear of my truck. So that's how it's all looking now. I decided it really needs some rear mud guards, so I've printed some out as well on my printer. Here's one once I've tidied it up and sanded it a bit smoother. I'll just glue those on the rear. Okay, so that's all of our parts done, ready for some paint. I'll start out with a couple of coats of nice fresh white paint on the cab. Then I went into Photoshop and I've designed some new decals for it. So I'll cut those out and apply them. So there's the decals on, and I'll just finish it off with a couple of coats of gloss clear. So next is the middle section there with the spoiler on it. So I just painted this black. Then I've got some white decal paper and I've printed out the shape of the sides of the spoiler on the rear of it. I'm going to cut those out and apply them onto the sides of the spoiler. Then some more Hill Climb Team decals as well. And this was finished with a satin varnish. Here's the interior and engine. It's a pretty dark windscreen, so I'm not actually going to bother painting the interior, but I've spray painted the engine in silver and I'll just apply black wash on that. And then here's the chassis. I've just painted the exhaust pipes there. Painted the rest of it black. Alright, so now I'm just going to assemble it. It's a static diorama, so I've just glued the wheels in there. Then the middle section on. And And the interior and the engine and the windscreen and cab. So that's our hill climb truck done. I'll put that aside. I'll move on to the Diorama Base. So I've got a wee photo frame here. Let's open that up and take it apart. I use some foam to make a base. Here I've got some cork, it's sticky on one side. I'm going to apply this up along the top of the bank here. It's going to be a dirt bank, and so this cork will look like overhanging sort of sods where the water's washed the bank away. Next, I'm going to use some filler to build up the ground. And here it is a day or so later, once it's all well dried. And I'm going to pop it off of the frame there so that I can work on it. You can see I've covered the frame with some masking tape to protect it. So here I've got some coarse sandpaper. I'm just going to sand down where the road is going to be. Next I paint the whole thing in tan. There it is once that's dried. And then I use my airbrush to apply some shading here and there, and also paint around the base at the sides in black. Now I've got some white paint, and I'm just going to apply some dry brushing around the outsides at the base. Here I've got some dry clay dirt. It's quite light coloured. I'm going to paint over all of the dirt areas on the diorama in PVA glue. And then I'll be able to sprinkle on some of my dirt. Once that was dried, I could brush off the extra that hadn't stuck onto the glue. Next, I'm going to make some tar seal. To do this, I've just got some sand and some black paint. I'll mix those up. And here's the base. I've sprayed this with scenic cement as well to set the dirt in place. You can find recipes for that online. And now I'm going to use my sand and paint to tar seal the top of the road here. And here that is a day or so later once it's nice and dried. Next I'm going to apply some more PVA glue just around the edges of the road. And onto that I'm going to sprinkle some fine gravel that I've sifted. To make a white line, I've put a couple of pieces of masking tape on, and I'm just using a sponge and some white paint, dabbing on a white line. And then of course I can just remove the masking tape. And you can just use a sponge and some black paint if you think there's a bit too much on there or it's gone over the masking tape or something. Here is some knock scatter grass. I'm going to use some PVA glue to apply some of that. So just painting it on where I want the scatter grass to be. And then you can just sprinkle on the grass. Next I'm going to apply some static grass. So I've got a couple of different colours here. There's some brown and some green. So I'm going to use the same glue. Just going to paint it on in patches. First of all, where I want the brown grass to be, and then I'll repeat the process with patches of the green grass. Next I'm going to make a couple of old worn looking trees. To do this I've got a couple of bits of root there that I've dried, tree roots, and then a few scraps of seagrass. It's a product for making trees for model railways and things. And I'm using some super glue to glue on some little pieces of the seagrass. There's the smaller branches on my trees. Gotta hold it there for 10-15 seconds and it will stick. Hold it, hold it. There it goes. So I'll just keep doing that until I've got enough branches on them. So next I give them a good coat of paint from some rattle cans. I use a couple of different colours of brown. Then I've got some green turf. So I've got some watered down PVA glue. And I'm going to paint that on to the ends of the branches where I want the foliage to be. And then I'll just be able to sprinkle on some of the turf. And there's my two little scruffy trees. I'll put them aside to dry properly. Next I'm going to make some little tiny flowers. So I've got a brush here. I'm going to just grab a few hairs and cut them off. I've used a little bit of masking tape there just to hold them together for now. And I'm going to use a little dab of green paint and colour them green. So once they're dried, I'll just cut them a little bit shorter. So now I've got a little pile of individual green flower stalks. So here I've got some green foliage and some blue for the flowers. I've made that out of snow that I put a dab of blue paint in. So I hold the individual stems in my tweezers and then paint them with the PVA glue, and then I sprinkle the green down the base of them and dip the end into the blue. And there I've got a little wee tiny flower stem. So I'll just repeat that process a few times until I've got a dozen or so little blue flowers to go on my diorama. And I've also made a few tuft flowers using my static grass applicator to make some tufts, and then just gluing the flowers on the end of them. And so I'll just finish off the diorama by gluing the flowers on, and I've glued the trees in place there. So hopefully it looks like a little chunk of the roadside somewhere around Pikes Peak. Now I'll just have to finish it by putting the truck in place. Thanks heaps for watching, I really hope you enjoyed it. Massive shout out to my Patreon supporters. Check out the description below for some links. Stay tuned for pics of the finished diorama, and I'll catch you in the next one.